Welcome everyone to Targeted Impact, helping membership organizations thrive by Wild Apricot. This is the inaugural episode of a bi-weekly, so every other week webcast, where we invite a thought leader, expert within the membership management space to join us and answer all your most pressing questions. My name is Andrew McQuaw. I'm your host. I'll be interacting with our guests on your behalf. And if you want to ask questions, you can do that directly in our chat. Or if you're a Twitter user, you can use hashtag Targeted Impact, and we will pick that up and pose those questions to our guests. And speaking of which, we have a very, very exciting guest today. We have Sarah Olivieri of EP1. Sarah, thank you so much for being with us today.
I'm so excited to be here and honored to be your very first guest.
Yeah, bringing out the big guns. So very, very excited. Now, Sarah, I know you are an absolute expert in strategic planning. You're the creator of the Impact Method, a methodology for unlocking an organization's full capacity. So I'm sure we're going to have some great conversations around goals, budgets, just how to run a really great organization. So I'm really excited to see what's coming in from the audience. But why don't we let you introduce yourself to the audience in your own words?
Sure. Well, hello, everybody. By all means, I'm looking forward most of all to answering your questions. But if you're wondering what to ask me, I have been an executive director. I've been a program director. I've organized conferences. I was once the director of a brand new foundation. So I've been on the money giving side as well. After that part of my career, I shifted into marketing and digital marketing, and I built a marketing agency, which I honed my sights on helping nonprofits make a bigger impact. So not just fundraising, but all sorts of marketing around increasing your membership, filling programs, how to increase value in your services or perceived value. And as I was doing that, I was really noticing that so many nonprofits couldn't benefit from great marketing because they didn't have the internal operational structure in place they needed to grow and thrive as they did so, instead of getting overwhelmed with more and more things on their plate. So at that point, I shifted to creating the Impact Method, which is a framework built on a lot of great work that the for-profit space has done on how to do business better and more easily, but really designed to work in a nonprofit setting. So most of my work these days at Pivot Ground, which is the name of my company, is teaching nonprofits how to do the Impact Method, which is the easy part, and enjoying watching them grow and helping them along the way with consulting. So that's what I do professionally. Personally, I'm a mom. I have a wonderful 7-year-old boy, and I'm also a sailboat racer. So if you hear sailing analogies in my explanations, that's why.
Oh, wow. Okay. I knew you were a mom because you wrote an entire book about, being a working mom, right?
I was in a book with some other moms called The One Thing Every Mompreneur Needs to Know. And that was a really fun book to do. There's extra challenges, just like running a nonprofit. Being a mom comes with extra things when it comes to also being an entrepreneur.
Okay, well, I'm waiting for the book on sailboat racing. I'm not going to press you too much there since we are here to talk about non-for-profits, membership organizations. So why don't we get started? Let's kick it off. Sarah, one thing that is really difficult for people, but organizations, same thing is true. Setting goals and sticking to them is really difficult. Now, you're an expert at helping organizations set goals. So, what's your secret?
Yeah. So the secret is it's never just a singular goal. And I used to be terrible at setting goals. So if you're terrible, we can get you there. And it's not actually that complicated once I reveal the secret, which is that every goal is usually a two-parter. There's the outcome that you're trying to achieve, which you don't have control over. So many of your audience here are probably membership organizations. I know. And so if you want to increase your membership, that's an outcome. You can't force a bunch of people to become your members. So then you have to have, that's the outcome. You have to have the action that you're going to do to actually try to have that effect of the outcome. And so you might increase your marketing activities. You might run a specific marketing campaign. You might say, we're going to go door to door with flyers, which you're not going to do right now, of course, but whatever those kind of your goal for yourself that you have control over. So once you have these two parts, you'll notice you have a little bit of a chain reaction going on. There's the outcome you're trying to get that you can't control, the thing you can control that you're going to do to try to get that outcome. And then from there, you're all set up to make a plan of your to-do list of all the things you're going to do to try to achieve the thing that you have control over, and then check to see if it actually had the effect that you hoped it would.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that very important step of after you've kind of completed the task, checking in to make sure you achieved what you wanted to achieve. Interesting, we live in the time of COVID right now, and we just got a question from one of our members of the audience about how to grow their membership. So that's a goal during the time of COVID. Is that something you've kind of helped any organizations with already?
We've definitely, I was actually just on a strategy call this morning talking about that very issue about how to grow membership. And of course, it really depends, like what is the value of your membership? What is it that people are getting from you? But there's three things to think about when you think about growing membership. Some people just want more people in their organization. Other times, maybe you're after more revenue. So I can't actually see the chat, but if people want to chime in, or if this is your issue, I want to grow membership, are you like, it's because of revenue, we want more money, or it's we just need to be serving more people? But if you want more revenue, which is kind of the bigger question, you can think about how do we just find more potential members? How do we increase their perceived value? As soon as you have perceived, we're talking marketing skills. And so,
Okay.
right, so marketing, branding, like how do we just make sure that what they're thinking we do is of value to them? And then, so that's one piece. The next thing you can do, you can think about tweaking your membership pricing model. For some people, that means raising your price. It is very easy to charge too little. That's more often the case than charging too much. Because if you charge too little, it makes your thing sound like it's not really worth very much. And if you charge more, people go, oh, this must really be worth something. Otherwise, they wouldn't be
Yeah.
charging you more.
I would
Yeah.
just want to quickly jump in. One thing I have noticed, which is quite problematic in this space, is that people, because you're a nonprofit, you're like, okay, we don't want to generate profit, so let's aim with everything we do to break even. We want to be at that break even point. I rarely have I ever seen it work where if you aim to break even, if you're there, you're almost always short. The goal is to not generate a profit, but you can generate a profit and reinvest it back into your audience, right? So I think that's a
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll talk about some budget things as well, but I just want to mention the third
perfect.
thing you want to focus on
Sure, sorry.
is what is the actual membership, right? And make sure that you're really thinking about what do people want? And I use two ways of a membership is a service, right? If you're a membership organization, you are a service business. Nonprofit, for profit, it's the same thing. You're providing a service. And when you're thinking about kind of what's in your service and how do you price it, I like to make two columns. I list out everything that is in the service and what it costs me. So I know how much it costs me to deliver each piece of that service. So maybe you get attendance at events, you get access to a special call like this, or maybe you get access to a course, or you get to network, whatever those things are, and list what they cost you as an organization. Now, in the next column for each of those things, list what you think somebody values that thing at. And usually, some of the things people value a lot and it costs you almost nothing. And other things people don't value much, but it costs you a lot. So for those things that cost you a lot, think about, is this just necessary and they don't know how valuable it is and we're going to eat the cost? Or should we just not do this because it costs us a lot and doesn't really help our people very much? And then you'll have two potential prices, the price that people probably value what you're offering at and the price that it costs you. And somewhere between those two numbers is how you should price your membership.
Okay. A lot of value there, a lot to unpack. So thank you for that answer, Sarah. Thorough is what I can say. Um, I'm looking at the questions here. As soon as we started on this, it was really nice. There was a mix of people like, yeah, revenue, yeah, more people, right? Like, what are we trying to grow? Revenue versus people. Um, are those things diametrically opposed?
No, they're absolutely not. And if we go back to goal setting, right? I think one of the things to be careful about our goals is, fortunately, as nonprofits, we have missions, and you do want to stay focused on your mission and have your other goals be kind of, I build strategies as mind maps with the mission at the center. Um, but those specific goals like increase revenue or build membership, we need to be mindful that the goal is not the end result. It's kind of like our next step forward. So really, they're very closely connected. More members might bring more money. So I think you really need to think about, like, where are you right now? If you're like, man, we just need more money because we're gonna tank, you need to be looking at all three of those things I just mentioned and doing all three, right? If you have 10 donors and you raise, not 10 donors, 10 members, and you raise your price by $1, now you have 10 more dollars. But if you raise your price by $1 and you double your members, now you have $20, right? So it goes up exponentially. And if you add the third component in of actually making something that people want even more, and then maybe that costs you a little less, without reducing the value to the members, then some people call it like geometric growth. I like to think of it as, it's that exponential. You put in a little and you get a lot out. That's how we thrive, right? We don't put in exponentially more effort. We just get exponentially bigger and bigger results for just a teeny more effort. So that's the secret to money, is thinking about all three. But sometimes really what we want is just to start with increasing membership, right? If basically our service is good and our current members are happy and they return again and again, then probably for you, just focusing on reaching more potential members is going to be the key thing. Or just changing the way you talk about what you're doing will be key to adding members.
Okay, excellent. This is obviously really resonating with people. One thing a couple of people now have mentioned is we're in the time of COVID. Growth is a little bit more difficult, and they want to talk about growing engagement as opposed to just members or revenue. So, you have any
Yeah.
thoughts on growing engagement in a time like now?
Absolutely. In many ways, it's a really easy time to grow engagement. So lots of people have questions. Lots of people are unsure. There's a certain amount of uncertainty that we're all just coping with. You could start a Zoom discussion or a go-to meeting, whatever video platform. This is a time that you can just allow your members to come together and level up the amount of even peer support they can give each other. We come together in times of crisis. And because these days we have the internet, you can do that very easily. Give people the forum. As a membership organization, you're the central node. You have the advantage of saying, oh, we can set up a Zoom call and all our members can join and just talk openly about what are we experiencing, who figured out how to do this, who figured out how to do that, and be the facilitator of sharing knowledge. So I think that's one great way to increase engagement right now.
Great. So, you gave a shout out to Zoom call. I'm not going to hold it against you since we're on GoToWebinar. That's okay. Um, what other platforms can people like take a look or should be looking at to kind of grow that engagement or encourage that
Sure.
engagement?
There are so many. The most important is to decide, where are your people going to show up? And if you're not sure, ask them. This is not rocket science. So when it comes to video calls, I find, so there's two things, right? There's a webinar function, which is like what we're doing now, where unfortunately I can't see you. I can only see Andrew. And that's not necessarily the functionality you need. You need a video call, conference call type thing. where everybody can see each other. So Zoom, I find, is the easiest platform I've used for people to join on who are not necessarily tech savvy. But if you're already in the Microsoft environment, you can use Microsoft Teams and their team meeting function. There's Google Hangouts. There's Facebook now, right? Facebook is getting in on this game. They are rolling out. In fact, they just rolled out large team calls for groups on Facebook. So if you already have a Facebook group for your members, and if you don't, you should. You can, do that there. So there are many, many options. But just think about what are your people? What's going to be easiest for your people to join?
Okay, great. I think the takeaway there is 2020, get on Facebook.
Some
Cool.
people still are like, oh, everybody is on Facebook. Even if they don't look like they're on Facebook, they're on there. I call them the grandma stalkers, like my mom. She's on Facebook. Does she post ever? Like once a year. But is she on it every day looking at what her friends and family are doing? Yes, she's on there like 3 times a day. So she's invisible to you, but she's there.
Okay, maybe Sarah's mom's on this call.
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay, so this is really interesting. So one of the questions that just came in was an organization. So they are so dependent on live attendance. They are a youth orchestra, and they're saying, right now, like they cannot plan because COVID has made that, or rather, not that they can't plan, sorry, that they cannot have their events because of COVID. And so they're asking, how do we plan for a membership when we have no control over future operations? So as a planning expert, how do you plan when things are so up in the air?
So, right. So a couple directions we go. It's one, from a planning perspective, I think in your case, you've got to, one, get creative, like throw everything you thought about music and what you've done in the past out the window for a moment. You can put it in one of my fireproof buckets temporarily.
Very nice.
And just think about what could you possibly do and run scenarios, right? Go through it in your head. Like if it's not just like all coming together, you might not have a strategy mind where everything just, oh, here it is. Here's the whole plan just magically appeared before you. No, most people can't do that. So run the scenario. Say, okay, we wanted to do it differently. Let's say we asked our people to enroll. What would we do? Walk yourself through the steps. Imagine yourself in that situation and see which scenarios start to make sense and which scenarios don't. But what I can say specifically about music, right? I know some people have tried doing music together on video platforms. I can't tell you which ones work, but I do know other people have been working on this, and some of them work for doing music remotely together. But what already is known to work is editing, having people record music independently, and almost everybody has a device in their house that has pretty decent recording quality, and you can edit that together. So maybe this is your opportunity to experiment with recording, editing, mixing. That is a big part of music, and maybe that's not something your organization did before, but this is your chance to dip your toes in the water and try something new.
Very cool. Love that answer. Getting very creative. So interesting. We just talked about youth orchestras. We have a couple questions coming in about, older membership. How do we attract more millennials, younger members? So what can we do there?
Yeah, I love that question because I think, regardless of COVID, many membership organizations have had this problem where their audience, their members are aging out and they don't have the new ones coming in. And it's an obvious trend, but still it can be hard. How do you know what you don't know? If you're not millennials, how do you know millennials? You could certainly hire a millennial. That would be one way to solve it. But, just to I like to always step back and look at the big context before I kind of dive into the microcosm. And in our nonprofits, our true mission, the thing we're trying to achieve, rarely changes. That outcome, right? When we separate our goals into outcomes and what we're going to do, our outcomes typically don't change very much. I once worked with an organization that was 125 years old, and its core mission basically hadn't changed. in 125 years. But it was
Wow.
going through a phase where it had to drastically change what it did in order to do stuff that actually was relevant to achieving that outcome, right? What you do, what you can do changes over time. So if you're in that position where your membership is aging out, you've got to really think about, we still want to achieve this outcome. And if you've got some old holder honors who are like, this is the way we've always done it, what's in it for them is, do you want to keep achieving the outcome that you've always wanted? If so, the way you've always done it, it's fine, but the whole world is now over here, like in a different place from you. So that's not working anymore. And right now, where we've experienced the sudden change in the world, right? So your old way is no longer getting the old result. And so they can keep their old result. The thing they were originally passionate about, they should still be passionate about, but they'll need some help and they'll need to be willing to try something new. Now, a couple things I can tell you about millennials specifically is millennials are passionate. Millennials are interested in impact and making a difference, and they want to be highly, highly engaged. They will be incredible members for you. And they are becoming into like full adulthood. I think there was a period when millennials kind of got this bad rap, but a lot of it was they were still young. And don't forget that Gen Z is not millennials. There are, educate yourself a little about where those lines are, because the millennials are not kids anymore. And most of them aren't, they're not even in college for the most part anymore. They're moving out into their full adult life. So they are prime for you, and go learn about them and find out what interests them. They're a very interesting generation.
Yeah, I turned 35 this month, and I did not realize until recently I was a millennial. So
You are. So tell us, Andrew. Tell us about the millennials.
tell you about millennials. Well, we definitely like webcasts. Anything we can do on our computer, we appreciate greatly. Instagram is a wonderful thing. What else can I tell you about millennials? We are passionate. Hopefully, it comes across in my voice. I'm passionate about helping people here. So, that's enough about me. Let's get back to people's questions. But yes,
You
there is
just
a
proved my point. Millennials are ready to be engaged. And if you're not sure, just go ask a millennial. They will tell you. They will not be shy.
okay. New show coming to Wild Apricot. Ask a millennial. Um, okay. Well, this actually segues really nicely into our next question. So a couple people have said, okay, how do I, like, given the dramatic shift in the way the world is operating right now, what can I do to, or what tactics rather can I leverage to kind of generate revenue? One person suggests, or even asked, like, can I charge for webinars? Like, what's your advice in that space?
You know, I want to give you some entrepreneurialism, because I think nonprofits need to be great and innovating. And unfortunately, our whole culture and history around nonprofits tells us don't innovate, don't experiment, do not take risks, stay poor. But those are just cultural expectations. They are not the law, and you can choose a different way. You can absolutely have money left over. And in fact, you should. I know, Andrew, you alluded to that earlier. You should have money left over, because if you don't have at least 3% of money left over every year, you're actually sinking, because that's the average rate of inflation, right? So that is say, yes, you can charge for webinars. You can charge for anything of value, and you should charge what people value it at, not what it costs you. So absolutely, make your memberships meaningful. That's probably the most important thing. There's so much that you can do online to make money, right? You can converse with people, consult with people, give them education, give them resources, be a facilitator of communication. The core of the internet, and actually, people might not know this, but there are two parts to the two versions of the internet. And I used to talk about scaling your digital fundraising, but the history of communication in a nutshell goes like this. scaled communication. First, there was the printing press, right? And this is one-to-many communication. Somebody writes a book and their idea goes out to thousands of people. This was huge for people. Then we'll skip ahead a few years to the first version of the internet coming out. And that was when, like, these email lists, all of a sudden anybody could be a publisher. And it scaled our one-to-many communication even more than the printing press. But then around, I think it was around 2003, some web technologies changed and they got even better. And we have the internet that we have today, which is all about scaling two-way communication, which means the internet's power is always been communication, but now it's about back and forth communication. So, and that's where the real value is. So whatever you can do that includes back and forth communication, you should monetize that for sure. So if people have specific questions, like how could I monetize this thing, by all means put them in the chat and I'll give you a more specific answer, but that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, well, you got me thinking. One thing that is big with millennials is that whole Patreon model, right? Everyone can view the content, but only a few people pay for it and they get some perks. So I don't think I've seen that model used in the non-for-profit space. Have you?
No, I haven't. And related to that, how do you get to what Andrew just said is look outside the nonprofit industry. One of the things that drives me nuts about the nonprofit industry is nonprofits are always looking to their neighbor nonprofits. Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? But you all have the same problem. And so you're just repeating the same systems that didn't work for your neighbor, but your neighbor did it, so you did it too. And that's okay. But now that I've told you, don't do that anymore. There's a really smart business consultant. His name's Jay Abraham. And he has made billions and billions and billions of dollars for-profit companies by looking to other industries. So he takes a company, he's worked across many industries. He says, oh, you make paper. I'm going to look over to, Amazon for some sort of answer that solves your problem. So if you're looking, how do I come up with this creative idea? Look to another industry. Look to Patreon. Look to, actually this morning I told you I was talking about increasing the value of membership. And I was saying, there are memberships like Dollar Shave Club, Wine Club. This is the age. There are so many membership models to look at. What's it? CauseBox. So many of those things. So look to for-profit membership models and see what inspires you from there.
That's interesting. I had never thought about the direct-to-consumer business model applying to direct to nonprofit, but that seems to make really good sense to me. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. All right. This is okay, a little bit of a change of pace here, but I think this is a really interesting question. For associations that are going into an election, how can they ensure by doing that election online that there's still transparency and affirm the confidence of their members?
So they're electing their leaders in their organization.
I'm going to guess they're electing a board. Let's work under the scenario that the board election's coming up.
Okay. I guess I'm not seeing an issue with this, probably because I'm going to guess I'm younger than you. So, so many ways to have transparency. I mean, just like with, if you had a paper election, I mean, yes, we hear a lot about voting systems getting hacked, but I don't think that that's likely in most of your nonprofits, that anyone's going to try to have something fraudulent happen. If you're worried about that, you have other issues to work on first, and you're welcome to schedule a call with me. But online, people are used to voting online, and you can quickly share the results of the votes. You might not want to share the results as they come in because it could skew the voters, but that's a decision you should make. But you could certainly show how the voting happened after the fact. Show how the votes came in. There's so much opportunity whenever you turn something that was done in person to something online. you have the opportunity to grab all of this additional data that you didn't have before very easily. And if you can turn that data into some sort of visualization of how people were acting, you can just grab a lot of attention because people are fascinated by especially seeing how human behavior looks in a data visualization. So I think there's everything you just asked about will be easier in an online type of election than it will be in person. So you're in a good spot.
Oh, yeah, very cool. Yeah, I was thinking live polling, but great point about how if it's live, it could skew the results. So, yeah, definitely something to think about. But I know even with this software we're using, GoToWebinar, you would be able to just do a poll, and then all you can do is hit reveal results. Like that's it. So, very cool. Okay, let's get on to some more questions. This is an interesting one. So we've talked a lot about providing value. We talked about Zoom meetings and things like that for organizations. So one of our attendees, their organization is running webinars, and they're saying that their membership absolutely love them. Smash
Mm-hmm.
hit. However, people now aren't renewing their membership, and they're asking how can we convert those people into paid members?
So they had members who showed up at webinars who aren't returning as members?
Yeah, my guess is maybe it's on a monthly model or something like that, but they were members and now they're trying to get those members to become paid members, and despite really successful webinars, they're
Ah.
not doing it.
So you're trying to up level maybe free members to paid members. So I'll address both scenarios
Sure.
because I bet people have had these problems. Like, what if your members are like active but not renewing? Um, and what if you're just trying to turn like a free person into a paying person? So the first time somebody gives you money, psychologically, that's the biggest barrier. So go back to what was the for-profit industry knows that very well. And many people have grown successful membership type businesses off a very low entry point. Like just if they can get you to give them $1 or $7, it's psychologically they are now your member, and it's much easier to get them to spend a little more. So definitely think about if you have tiers, like what is that tier, and really check on the experience as you go from one to another. And there's, in marketing, we talk about a customer journey. I like to think of it as a relationship journey. And whenever we're online, there are a lot of things we do naturally in person that we forget when we're in a digital context. It's like everybody has autism when they go digital with their marketing. So the people with autism are like good to go because they already know all the rules broken down. So what you need to know is it's a separate step to know that you exist. And then basically we say know, like, and trust in marketing, but they need to like you, or I like to think you want them to love you, and you want to love them, and you want them to trust you. And so there's activities you can do to get them to like or love you and to trust you. Once they like and trust you, then they'll be ready to give you some money. And when you want them to give you more money, you need to go through level up how much they love you and how much they trust you. But it'll be easier to get them to level up. So if they're coming to your webinars and loving them, it could be that they're just building trust and not ready, or it could be that you haven't really expressed the value that they're going to get, how much more value they're going to get by joining your paid membership.
Great answer. One thing that occurred to me right now is, we are sadly in a period of uncertainty. We do have really high unemployment in the United States right now. Maybe some people are not joining because they don't want to even, whatever a membership is, if it's $20 a month or something like that. They may maybe be concerned that they can't make that commitment right now. Would tier membership be like, is there a tier that we probably think is acceptable for people who may be a little bit hesitant right now?
Wow, there's so many things you could do around that. I mean, you're absolutely right. If you need to find out for your people who are not renewing, you need to ask them why, right? If these were paying members who are not renewing their membership, ask them, interview them, call up every member who didn't renew and say, hey, I just wanted to know why you didn't renew. We want to make sure we're giving the most value that we can. And if it's because they've lost their jobs, that's fine. But here's some creative ideas just off the top of my head right now, right? For those, some people are low on income, some people have more money right now because they're still making money and they're not able to spend it. So you could put out a campaign to ask those members who aren't struggling to sponsor a membership for somebody who is, right? That way everybody stays as a member and it'll feel really good as a community to be helping each other. You could create like a really a pledge member, so somebody who is temporarily stepping out because they can't afford it, but they want to come back, and keep them at some sort of like pledge status so that like they're on your short list to make sure you bring them back as soon as they can afford it. You could certainly roll out a less expensive membership that would still bring a lot of value to them. I think it's certainly okay to offer extra things in the time of COVID and not charge for them, but to make the membership more valuable right now. So those are a few things that you could try.
Great. So we have our first question from Twitter. Everything else has been
Yay.
right in the platform. Yeah, success. Um, Someone is asking, so traditionally they are a locally based organization and a lot of their membership comes from their region. However, now, because of COVID, they've switched to online and they are seeing people from outside their core region. And they're wondering, how can they, like, I guess to good results, they're wondering how can I kind of now expand to a region I'm not normally working in, like more
Well, I'd
proactively.
say first of all, right, I'm a strategist. Think from the big strategy perspective. And this is a great opportunity. Many people who were local organizations now have the ability to be national organizations if they want to be, or international organizations. Because we really, one thing that's, as much as we are distant from our neighbors, we are close to everybody right now. I'm equally close to my friends in Europe as I am to my friends in New York State where I live at the moment. So make a conscious decision. Is this an opportunity that you want to take advantage of, or do you really want to stay a local organization? And if you want to stay local, it's okay to say no to other people and say we're really for our local community, and then try to expand within your community. But if you want to take what you're doing, if there's nothing specific about that you have to be local, by all means, stay digital, stay, agile, and let it expand and grow to everybody who needs. If your main service of your membership is information or peer support, there's no reason why you shouldn't be larger. But if there's something about being local that makes your organization extra special, then by all means you can keep that and still have a tremendous online component.
Awesome. Very cool. So we've talked a lot about organizations, have been around a while, switching online, growing that way. We have a very interesting question that's completely other end of the spectrum. Someone on this call, Katie, is saying that she is starting a non-for-profit, and there's a lot of community interest. It's very high right now. She'd like to know if you have any suggestions on how to build that initial membership successfully.
Great question. And it is a fine time to be starting a nonprofit. In fact, I have a client who is starting a nonprofit, and I'm like, let's get on this fast because this is a great change moment, and you can ride that wave as you start your nonprofit. And I suspect that's partly why you're probably getting extra community interest, because people are alert right now and they're paying attention. They're actively looking for new things and changes. So that's really great. I think when you're new, it's important to remember that you're probably going to go through a few cycles of making sure that you really have the right membership. What you're offering in your membership is really the right thing. So don't, you're going to come out of the gate and it might get popular, but keep assessing, like, did I just tap my low-hanging fruit? And if you did, you're going to have a dip, and then you're going to refine. So make sure you take an iterative approach and keep coming back and checking, okay, is this what's working for us? And when it gets exciting and your membership is coming in, don't forget to build the rest of the infrastructure of your organization. Too often I see nonprofits come to me they're totally overwhelmed. It's because they grew their programming, but the base that supports all of that is just this teeny little thing, and they're teetering all over the place. And anybody who's new starting a nonprofit doesn't have to make that mistake. You can grow the whole thing so that it's supported by systems and processes, and not just you opening up your veins and bleeding for your organization. I don't want that for nonprofit leaders.
Definitely not. Okay. Wonderful. In answering the questions, sometimes people actually, instead of asking questions, throw out some really good ideas. I just really want to highlight this one from Sari. She said for her organization, what they did is they did a webinar, charged for it, and then people who paid to attend the webinar, I guess it was some free, some paid, they would then get a 30-minute consultation. So that's an interesting model I had not seen before. So just a big shout out to Sari on that one. Okay. What else do we have? Okay, Rena has asked, they are the president and founder of an organization and are having some difficulty getting their board active and engaging with new ideas. So how do you kind of get your board more involved in thinking about things in a new way? How do you jumpstart that process?
Yes, great question. Boards are tricky. And I'll just come right out and say, I have some different opinions than a lot of other people about boards. So at the end of the day, though, we're stuck with a legal requirement to have boards, and what your board's actually allowed or not allowed to do from a legal perspective is determined by your state. So check on your state nonprofit laws to know what your board is allowed to do or not allowed to do. But the basic kind of the idea of having a group, and most nonprofits still have volunteer board members, but some states you are allowed to pay your board. But let's just assume for a moment, because the bulk have volunteer boards, is if you have a group of part-time volunteers who are not experts in running associations or nonprofits, in charge of making all the most important decisions for your organization, that's just a recipe for systemic failure. So what are different approaches to dealing with this? There's some consultants who I know we all recognize this problem. Anybody who's really started to think about boards. Some consultants really think that the thing to do is work with your board and cultivate them and make the most of a bad situation. Educate them. And I remember I was doing some consideration whether or not I wanted to work with boards, and I did my own market research, and I was just Googling terms like board development, nonprofit strategy building, and by far, board development had the most number of results because it's so problematic and so many people are addressing what's really a bad system. My approach is that if your board is good, keep going with that. But if you're struggling with your board, strip your board down to the legal essentials, which is really holding the liability for the organization. And anybody who thinks through this critically, wow, I'm an uneducated volunteer who's liable for this organization, I'm going to pay people who know what they're doing to actually do a good job, because I'm not going to, I'm not going to be if I'm not an electrician, I'm not going to wire my own house, because that's a recipe for burning my house down. I'm going to hire an electrician. So in that case, I'd say don't worry about your board getting too engaged. Be a strong leader. You've got this. You're the paid staff. Hopefully, you're paid. And you build other ways to support yourself. You can have a fundraising committee. You can have a membership engagement committee. You have any committee or task force you want outside of the board to get anybody to help you do the work of running your organization. Does that make sense a bit? I know it's totally kind of new out there thinking for nonprofits, but I'm going to say it.
Be bold. I like it. Very cool. This is a type of membership activity I've never thought about. Sumitra is asking. She has a WhatsApp group of 250 members. 20% of them right now are inactive, and she wants to know when she hits 256. So I'm guessing that's an upper limit on a group within WhatsApp. If she should either delete people who are no longer participating, create a new group, or I guess delete and then replace with new members. So it's really, do I delete people who are not active right now, or do I start a new group? And I think that actually extends well beyond WhatsApp. We can definitely talk about email and just membership in general.
Absolutely. And good for you for building a WhatsApp group. You talk about meeting people where they are. I would say, first let people know like that. And I'm basically in favor of you deleting those who are inactive, but give them some warning, right? Put yourself in their shoes and find out, well, like, how would I feel if I was not that active, but all of a sudden I was gone? And you don't want to be like getting bad will towards you. So ultimately, probably delete them if they're truly inactive. But first, I would ask them, say, hey, anybody who's not active, we're not planning on keeping in this group. If you want to stay in for some reason, please let me know. And then if you have a way of messaging them as you make them inactive, to just let them know that that's why, and it's not because you didn't like them or some other reason. Not knowing can create the most anxiety. So give them a reason to let them know what it was, and make sure they have a step to rejoin if they want to. But if at that point you're still getting full up, by all means, I would start another group, and you might want to split your full group into two so that one isn't giant and the other one is teeny. And you might, if you can theme them in some way, that might be helpful.
Very cool. All right, we've got a couple very tactical questions now. One, actually, I'm now seeing this is asked by a couple people.
Okay.
Monthly or annual membership, which is better?
Overall, I'd say it depends on what your membership is, but I would go monthly, especially if it's on auto pay, right? If it's not on auto pay, but I like to think of well, here's a couple reasons. One, right? If you're on annual and people are unhappy, you don't really know about it, right? So while you might have that income for the full year, they might be planning not to renew and you don't know it. So you get much more kind of fine-grained data if you're charging monthly. And if people are unhappy and you're ready to respond quickly, you'll know that. But I also just think, when it's an opportunity to keep yourself on your toes, keep engaging people when you're thinking about bringing that monthly value. Ideally, ask them to commit to an annual membership and charge them monthly, I would say.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one more tactical question, and then I think we'll have to wrap up. I cannot believe we've been doing this for almost an hour, but I think that's because it's just so easy to listen to you talk, Sarah. So thank you for that. Okay, last question. Hopefully this is not too vague. What is a great subject line to email potential members?
A question. If I
Oh,
ask you a question, it is almost impossible for the human brain not to begin answering a question when it's asked. If I asked you, what color shirt are you wearing? Put it in the chat if you're not answering that question in your head. I'm sure you just answered that question in your head. In fact, I asked it, and I answered it for myself and for Andrew. I'm like, oh, I'm wearing a white shirt. Andrew's wearing a blue shirt. We can't. So, you know, when all else fails, a question wins again and again and again. So, and if it, you know, the closer you get to a question that you think your members are worrying about or wondering about, the more engaging it will be. So yes, you could ask them, what color shirt are you wearing? But you could, you know, ask like, you know, and don't make it a too obvious question, make it interesting. Like, you know, are you worried about your getting more clients? Are you worried about you know, the stilt grass that's growing? I'm in New York State. We have stilt grass. It's an invasive species. Are you worried about stilt grass this year? You know, have you seen any of this? Any question will perform really well.
Okay, awesome. Well, Sarah, that was wonderful. We actually got 114 questions. I know we did not answer 114 questions, but we got 114 questions. So thank you for answering the ones you were able to get to with us. For everyone else who was asking questions, we didn't get to them. Our apologies. I wish we could answer every question in 30 seconds. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but we will try our best to kind of round those questions up, put out some additional resources. So there's that on questions. Sarah, just thank you so much for being here. Thank you. I'm just going to give you a quick opportunity to kind of give a shout out to the audience, let them know about the good work you're doing and how they can get in touch with you if they so want to continue this conversation.
Sure. The best place to find me is at pivotground.com, and you'll see an apply for a call button there. If you'd like to have a free one-on-one consultation with me, you are welcome to apply for a call. People are often shy, but we'll really have a free consultation. Otherwise, you can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. If you're an executive director, I have a Facebook group for executive directors called Executive Directors Ready to Thrive. But I love talking with me. So please reach out if you're at all interested in at least just having a conversation.
Okay, awesome. Well, I really hope a lot of people reach out to you. It'd be, I think, massively helpful for all of them. And so yeah, everyone, make sure you give Sarah a shout. So hopefully you enjoyed episode 1 of Targeted Impact. Our next episode is going to be on June 18th, where we'll be joined by Nancy Settle-Murphy. So please sign up for that. You'll see an email going out in the next few days. And of course, you know, this is all about helping membership organizations dealing with the biggest challenges of today. Right now, we're all thinking about COVID. We have on the Wild Apricot website, we have one COVID resource support site, so you can go there, read about all the stuff that can help your organization during COVID. And of course, we have a COVID plan. So if you're an organization dedicated to helping with this global health crisis, you can get a free Wild Apricot plan. And if you're not dedicated to COVID, you can still sign up for a 30-day free trial, get used to the software, see how it helps membership-based organizations. And with that, I'm going to wrap up today. Thank you again, everyone, for being here. And I really look forward to seeing you next time. Sarah, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you again soon in the near future.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.